Welcome back to the workshop. I'm Bill, and today I want to talk about these generators, the generators that you find on the very early Coleman stoves. The Model 1, the Model 2, the Model 9, I think the Model 10 used, if not the same generator, something very similar. I believe it's the same part from the Model 1, the Model 2, the Model 9, up through the 2 and 9 D revisions. This is the tank off of 9D, and then when you get to the E, that's where they introduced the instant lighting feature, but they still use the same style generator, but instead of having a key on the end, they actually have a valve wheel knob. I think they're plastic. They might be fiber, but I'm pretty sure they're plastic. But the internal workings of the generator are the same. So I have reason to have a couple of these apart. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what's inside of these, how they work, all that kind of thing, and then put one back together, and hopefully that'll give you some insight, because I know questions come up on these fairly regularly, even though these stoves aren't that common anymore. So they all mount more or less the same way. You've got the tank, which hangs over the front of the stove, and they've always got a brass fuel line that runs under one of these arms, support arms, and comes up to the generator, and the generator's got a T in it here. So I've got one here. This guy, I already know, this has some problems. The generator tip, or the cleaning needle tip, doesn't come all the way out. So to take these apart, we'll put one wrench on this hex and another wrench on this one, and just turn. Sometimes you may be able to just hold it, but usually these are pretty gummed up. And I think that's as loose as it's going to get. So you'll want a key handy or something to turn this. Unscrew it from the generator body. Go. Now this, I've had this apart before, and I'm pretty sure these have long threads on them. I am pretty sure that this is a later replacement generator. So there's the generator body. This actually, now because see there's a pin through here, so you can't actually get the nut off without grinding that down, removing it, whatever, what have you. This actually has a graphite packing in it. Those didn't come along until a bit later. The main reason I suspect this is a later replacement is that this has a needle that's simply crimped into a tapered tip on the cleaning rod. The bummer with this is that means there really isn't any easy or practical way to replace this needle. That's unfortunate, because if this were one of the older style, I'll show you in a moment, you can actually replace the needle assembly on the end of it. But anyhow, so this is about as much as this will come apart, unless it's one of the later ones, in which case you can remove the needle. Go ahead and remove the tip. Just like the later generators, the tips on these are sort of two parts. We've got the outer part here that comes off, and then inside is the actual jet. Now, here's the interesting thing with these old generators. Inside are 7 carbon crushing rods. These are just steel rods, and they work. In some ways, they do the same thing that the spring in the later generators did, in terms of helping to retain heat and to spread heat. So these sit in here, and they sit around the brass cleaning rod, and because they run the length and because they're steel, they help transfer the heat through the generator, which makes it more efficient. They also help center the cleaning rod so that it's not moving around in there. They're a tight fit. I'll show you how to put them back in shortly. But the other thing they do, these are called, you'll either hear them called carbon crushing rods or carbon crushing rollers. And Coleman did away with these in the 30s. But what they appear to do, if you actually put them in and they're clean so that everything can move freely, and you turn the valve and this cleaning rod rotates inside there, and you look in the tip, and there won't be any way for you to see this, but when you look inside there, and you can actually see these rods rolling around. And when you take one of these apart and it's dry and it's been used a lot, you'll get a lot of carbon out. So I kind of suspect these generators, because of the way they work, these are on hot blast stoves generally, they do seem to take more abuse than later style generators did. They seem to have more carbon buildup, and I think Coleman's idea was to have these steel rods in there, and they would rotate, assuming everything doesn't get too much carbon built up in there or they don't rust. And as they rotate, they crush the carbon. So instead of having large chunks break loose and clogging the orifice, it just sort of grinds the carbon into a powder, and it can just be ejected with the vaporized fuel. So that's how we take it apart. Now just some notes. If you've got one of these and it's been sitting for a long time, these generators are notorious for being stuck. So always use care with them. If the valve doesn't want to turn, you put the key on it, or it's one of the later ones with a knob, and be careful about forcing it, because you can break things in these generators. I mean, this brass rod is pretty hefty, but things can still break. Your best bet with these, if things don't want to come out, if you maybe get this unscrewed but it just won't slide out, try heating and quenching several times. Take a propane torch, heat the generator body, try to get it maybe so it glows. It is brass, so it's not too hard to do that, but get it so it starts getting red hot, and then plunge it into some cold, preferably ice water. The more of a temperature shock, the better it'll work. Try that a few times. If you still can't get it apart, what I did with this back when I refurbished that years ago, I heated and quenched. That didn't work, so I put it in something to stand it up, and I took the tip off, and I filled it with carburetor cleaner and let it sit for several days, and then dried it out and sprayed penetrating oil in there, and rotated the valve stem, and that worked things loose, and I was then able to slide everything out, and still the carbon crushing rods they still didn't just fall out. I had to work at them a little bit to get them all out. So be careful with it. Time's your friend. Be patient. Heat carb cleaner to cut some of that carbon, and penetrating oil, but you can get these apart, and the parts are pretty sturdy. Be careful with these. With the carbon crushing rods, they're steel. Generally speaking, all you really need to do is just steel wool them so that they're smooth. Be careful that they don't get bent, because if they get bent, then it's going to be hard to get everything back in. So let's set that aside. Here's a generator that I just finished cleaning. So it went into a pot of citric acid. I didn't put these in. The carbon crushing rods, I just hit with steel wool. Ran them under the faucet, rubbed them down with steel wool and dried them well. Make sure you don't let them sit out, because they will flash rust. They're just steel. So to put this back together, we'll start with the valve stem and the rod. Now this is what I was talking about. This is the replaceable needle. Now there's a threaded body here, and it threads into the end of this cleaning rod. These can be tricky too. You may need to use some heat. Sometimes when if you need to replace it, sometimes when this comes out, it pretty much gets destroyed on the way out. It's a sleeve that's threaded that fits in there, and then the actual needle is akin to a sewing pin, or I guess a sewing pin would be the best analogy. A sewing pin's a bit larger, but it's actually, it slides in and it's got a head on this end that keeps it from going all the way through. I don't know why they made it in two pieces like that, other than this is brass and the needle is steel. Be very careful with these. This is old, it's brittle. If you try to, this is a little bit wavy, it's got a slight bend in it. If you try to unbend it, you'll probably just snap it because it's old and brittle, but it'll continue to get the job done. So I haven't tried to take this apart. I just use some pliers, put it on the needle and try to push it back a little bit, but this thing's so carboned up, even though it looks relatively clean, that needle's not going to budge. But on the new one, and the nice thing with these is you can still get new old stock. They haven't made them in many years, but new old stock is still available from places like old Coleman parts. So if you were to get a new one, it comes as two separate pieces. There's the needle and then the sleeve. So the first thing we'll do is thread that into the rod, and that's going to be tight enough. Now this is an older one. This had the old packing rope in it. I think what Coleman used on these, I assume there was graphite in it, but it was like an asbestos rope that was in here, and that's why this came apart. It had broken down, it was making a mess. Some of it had gotten down into the valve body and was preventing it from closing all the way. So as we put this back together, one of the things we need to do, that's our next step, is to replace that graphite packing. So I'm using this graphite packing rope. You can find this at some home improvement stores. I buy mine from a plumbing supply house that supplies plumbing contractors. You want to make sure that you get the graphite, and this goes for any repacking job you do on a valve, whether it's a stove, lantern, what have you. You can get, I know Home Depot here sells a faucet, like for a faucet valve packing, and it says it's graphite. It's this black rope, and it's kind of, I don't even know how to describe it, lumpy looking. That stuff, when it gets hot, will liquefy and turn to goo, or if it's hot and in the presence of gasoline, I guess. Don't get that. This is like a thin graphite that's twisted into a rope, and that's what you want to get. So, I have never actually repacked one of these large valves before, but it should be the same as anything else. So what you want to do is just wrap this around. If you can kind of get a grip on there. It's slippery. So that's one wrap. That's about two. That's about three. Twist it, we should be able to start working it down in there. And this is a fairly large valve body, so we may end up having to add more. My rule of thumb is, on most valves, is to pack it just to the point where you have difficulty getting the valve stem nut to thread onto the valve. In fact, sometimes you need to get out your vise and use that to push on. Okay, so I think that should be all right. So I will thread this in. So this is the fuel shutoff point here, this seat. So if you've got it apart, you might want to make sure that that's clean. And also in the valve body itself, this had that asbestos packing rope all over inside, and it was preventing the valve from shutting off properly. properly. So I'm going to see if I can do this with my fingers. And I think I might be able to. On these, the threads on the valve stem will probably help because already I can feel this is threading into the valve. So that made it easier, and I suspect I'll need to add some more graphite to this, but we'll see. What we want to do is tighten this down, and it will compress it inside that valve stem nut. And actually, I've been able to tighten it down to the point that it looks like it was originally tightened to. I might actually have it a little bit too tight because this isn't the easiest thing to turn. It should be a little easier than that. Sometimes it's just a matter of turning it a few times. Get the graphite. In this case, it's hard to feel, so I'm going to back it all the way off and take a look inside and see what that packing looks like. See if we need to add any more, or it's not getting into the seat, so that's good. Let's press this down in. All right, I'm going to add just a bit more. Try this first. And we'll put this in. And make sure this is clean. Some of it gets cut by the threads as it goes in. And we don't want that in the valve seat. Now, if I wasn't repacking this, the way I would put this back together is first I would put in 3 of these rods from this end and then slide the cleaning rod or the valve stem in. Since I'm repacking it, all right, that feels perfect. And I can actually feel it close firmly. That's good. I haven't felt that before with it. So there's always something in there that just felt like when I had it tight, it just went mush. So I think we're good there. Let's give it just a little bit more. Check it. And the first time we put this on the stove and fire it up, I'll make sure it's not leaking here. If it leaks, then we'll give it a little bit more of a turn. So, first thing we do, I'm going to take 3 of these rods, I'm going to drop them down in the bottom. 3 of them sometimes 4, that'll go in easy. So then we'll just start sliding them in one at a time. What you don't want to do is try to put too many in at once and have them start to sort of twist. Then you'll never get them all in. That's 5. Rod is wanting to sit high, so there we go, that's 6. Bend the rod, you also don't want to hit the cleaning needle there, and you don't want to slip and have that go into your thumb. Use the tip on this as well to push things in place. And last one. Back that out. Just a little bit. All right, that's all of them in. Use the jet to get them all seated. And we'll tighten the tip. All right, there we go. There's an old antique first generation Coleman stove generator. That's what it looks like inside. That's you can take it apart, how you can clean it. And if you've got especially one of these old ones with the asbestos braid or asbestos packing inside, that's how you repack it. And it should be good for another 90, 95 years now. So hope that helps. Thanks for watching.